Hi guys, this is Erica from Gokce Capital. Now before I begin, be sure to click subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Brent Sinkala's family has been raising Wisconsin dairy cows for generations. But now, Brent will add another crop to his herd, the sun. We'll learn more at the end of this video, but first, if you own land, you may want to consider leasing it to a solar company. And in today's video, we have the top things you should know. Number 1, what is a lease for a solar farm? Well, as the name would suggest, this kind of lease occurs when you grant a company a lease in order to develop a solar farm on your property. Number 2, what are the pros of leasing your land for solar farms? Well, the primary benefit, of course, is that it generates income. It also promotes sustainable farming in two senses of the word. First, you're helping to generate renewable energy, but also you're getting a steady, reliable, long-term source of income. And finally, a big question that many people may have is, can I still use my farm if I lease it to a solar company? And the answer is generally yes. In many circumstances, the solar company will not use all of your property, and you can continue to farm on the rest while you generate income from the lease. Number 3, what are the cons of leasing your land for a solar farm? Well, first, a solar lease is almost always a long-term commitment. Think 20 to 30 years. Also, of course, solar panels are going to be placed on your land, which will limit what you can do with at least a portion of it. And some other things you may not consider immediately, but it's possible that your lease will interfere with certain government programs and benefits, particularly things like tax breaks for using the land for agricultural purposes. Oh, and there's one final con. Keep in mind that you do not own any of the solar equipment. Your income is coming not from the energy that is produced, but from the fact that you are a landlord leasing the land. So this means the equipment is not an asset you own, and you also don't get any benefit from the energy produced. Number 4, how do you know if your land is right for solar? Now, you may be sold on the idea of leasing your land for a solar farm, but it's possible your property won't work. Here are some things to keep in mind. You will need substantial acreage. Most land leases for solar farms are for utility-scale farms. You'll also need the right topography, and something you may not think about, but your land does need to be near existing electrical infrastructure like transmission lines and substations, as well as a demand for electricity. So if you're too far out, you may be out of luck. And finally, your land must be located in a jurisdiction that will give a permit to your developer for a solar farm. Number 5, if a company has reached out to you, here are a few things that you should look for when you're discussing terms. There are the basics. What will the lease amount be? And what is the annual escalator? Your lease amount should go up each year, and it should at least track inflation. Another thing to keep in mind is that a solar company is not going to enter into a lease with you right away. They're going to want to do their due diligence to make sure your land is right for a solar farm. And this period can take quite a long time, anywhere from a year to 2 years. During this period, your land will likely be tied up in that you won't be able to sell it. So you'll want to understand how long your developer has to do their due diligence. Another major item is who is going to pay for the cost of any repairs that may be required by the development work. And a big one is where exactly the developer plans to place the solar farm and how much land they want to take up. And finally, an item that can be missed, but decommissioning procedures. Remember, you don't own the equipment, so when the lease is up, you'll want it off of your property. You'll want to make sure there is an appropriate procedure for doing this and that all costs will be borne by the developer. And finally, number 6, what are the steps involved in leasing your land for a solar farm? Well, the first thing to understand is that almost always, a developer or utility company will reach out to you directly. It's very rare that you can proactively find someone to lease your land. But if someone has reached out to you, they'll usually first start by sending a letter of intent. Once you've agreed in principle to the lease, you may then have to sign an option agreement. As we mentioned, the developer is going to go through a due diligence period. Within that time period, the developer can exercise the option to enter into the lease. But they likely won't have to. Once this agreement is signed, the developer will complete their due diligence. And if everything works out, you will then sign a lease, and the solar farm is built. Now that covers the basics of leasing your land for a solar farm. And with that, let's return to Brent Sinkela. Brent has operated the Irish Acres dairy farm for 12 years. Before that, it was his childhood home. Since I was 5 years old, I was out there feeding calves, Brent said. Yet recently, business has been tough. The milk market is consolidating, becoming more and more dominated by large companies. As Brent comments, small family farms that don't require outside laborers can survive this change, but medium-sized dairies like his are disappearing left and right. Brent didn't plan to expand his dairy, so he needed to find another way to supplement his income. And that's when an energy company approached him with a proposal to lease a third of his land, or 500 acres, to install solar panels. For him, the solar lease provided a financial safety net for the farm. And he's not the only farmer who's embracing such an arrangement. Across Wisconsin, dairy farmers and solar companies are working together in a somewhat surprising arrangement given how far north Wisconsin is. In Brent's small community alone, 4 other farmers have signed solar leases, including Laddie Frank, who now, in his 80s, sees a solar lease as a way to retire on his farm without the hard labor of dairy farming. So it really doesn't matter where in the U.S. you own land. It's likely that a solar lease could be an option for your acreage. So why not look into it? And if you already have a solar lease on your land, let us know about it in the comments. Did you like this video? You're going to love our Gokce Land Due Diligence program. We'll make you a land due diligence expert in just 7 days. Check it out at gokcecapital.com/glad. And while you're at our website, don't forget to explore our $1 down listings at gokcecapital.com/listings. Finally, don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you for listening, and more to come.